Hello again, SGPers. I'm Companion Wolf with another Smile Game Builder tutorial. In this video, I'm revisiting and expanding my previous tutorial on waypoints, where after being defeated in battles, you'll resurrect fully healed at the last waypoint you visited. I'm still going to upload tutorials on YouTube, for now at least, despite the new rules, so don't forget to click the subscribe button to be notified of when I upload new videos, or check out the entire playlist for yourself. I am officially saving up for a new computer. The one I'm using is getting increasingly old and cranky, a bit like its owner. If you'd like to donate towards this, the link to my PayPal is in the description. You don't have to, of course, but every little helps, and you'll have my eternal gratitude, and I'll credit you in my videos as well. This tutorial was requested in the official Discord channel. The link to that will be in the description as well. Feel free to join in for all things SGB and some general chit chat and fun, of course. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is an expansion of the previous tutorial on waypoints, number 45. There are 3 main areas we'll cover in this video to set up the Waypoints system, but I'm going through them in the order that I created them. The first event is the waypoint, where you can store the location to resurrect your characters after they die in battle. And in the event details, there are 2 event commands only. Don't worry about the switch just yet, we'll come back to that. The first thing to do is to assign a number to the variable representing your map ID. This number is then stored as the waypoint reference for when you resurrect. And the second event command is to call a common event. Obviously in the beginning you probably won't have anything that you could call on, so you can leave that alone and come back to it. So into the common events, and then we'll create another one. Click on advanced, then click add, and we'll have another one. Anyway, I've created a few already. I've named this one set waypoint save game because that's what it'll do. Make sure the trigger is to execute from another event, and then display a selection with 2 options, store and save. Under save, it'll obviously be a case of displaying the save screen, and that's it. For the store option, where you store your essence at the waypoint, display a message to confirm you want to store at that waypoint, and then when you use any of the waypoints, it'll override the previously stored locations. Add another display selection with yes and no. No is left blank. So under the yes, you can add various options like sound, animation, and messages, however you want it to set up. This is just for the animation sequence itself when you step onto the waypoints. It's put as a common event to cut down on all of the clutter and having to put this in each and every waypoint event. And that's it for that part. Oh, and before I forget, I have another common event set up called variables setup, which is where I put all the commonly checked variables like player direction, player coordinates, and there's one here. All of these are the keys, but I didn't bother renaming them. So this is the one that we will be using for this tutorial, and it's the decide key. So for a quick playtest, this will be how it will work at its basic level. When you step on, you have the option to store or save, and then you get, are you sure you want to save? set this as a waypoint, you'll lose your previous stored waypoint. That should be previously stored waypoint. Never mind. Your essence is now stored. When you die, you'll resurrect here. So back into the common events to set up how and where you'll resurrect. So I've created one called Resurrect. Again, the trigger should be execute from another event. And you can darken the screen. This is optional. If you want to darken and brighten the screen when you transition for the Resurrect, I found that 0.1 or 0.2 seconds is a good enough setting. Otherwise the map will flash before you're whisked away to your recorded waypoint. If you want it to be instant, then obviously you'd have 0 seconds there. Play a sound effect. I thought that the Resurrection was most appropriate for this, not just because of the name, but because of what it sounds like. It's kind of like angelic almost. Anyway, do a full party heal, and the next part is where the nuts and bolts is. We have several nested branches to check the map ID. In this case it's set to variable 4. Now the first one is set to smaller than or equals to 1, because if you remember we set the first waypoint to 1. And this is in case when you're starting out you forget to visit the wayplace to save your spot. Since this is the beginning of the map, this is where it'll default to. Under no, it's the same thing for another waypoint, but obviously this number is increased to reflect the next map. I'll cover that in a second, and then you can repeat this for as many waypoints as you set up. I'd recommend that you don't overpopulate your maps with waypoints. The idea is that you split your maps into sections, and if you die in battle then you'll be resurrected at the beginning of that section, and you'll have to go through it again until the next waypoint is reached. Kind of like chapters in a book. Now that's done, the next waypoint to set up is the desert one. It's basically a copy and paste of the previous waypoint event, but its map ID is 2. Again, don't worry about the switch just yet. For the monsters, each one is set up exactly the same. You have your place battle command with the no game over even if defeated box checked. I covered this in a previous tutorial, ages and ages ago now, in tutorial 28. You can use the when victorious branch to give extra items, or just leave it as it is, since you're still rewarded with any XP, gold and items that the monster has when you set them up in the monster settings. But here you can also add things like a departing message for when the monster dies, maybe a sound effect, or for the case of a boss it changes into his true form and you can place another battle for a different monster. You know the ones I mean. Or you can even have a monster join your party, although you definitely don't want each and every single monster have this option, maybe just a unique one or something. And the common event for resurrecting if you're defeated is called under when defeated. obviously, and that'll transport you after a battle to the stored waypoint, fully healed. Now, something to bear in mind. This is the only way this method will work. SGB doesn't have this option for regular spawning monsters as set up in the map's battle settings. If you use the spawning monsters method, when the battle ends, the game over screen will appear, so the waypoints can't be used. Similarly, if your entire party dies outside of battles, that's it as well. Game over and title screen, and you'll have to reload from any saved games. And of course, if you didn't save, then, well, bad luck. So now if we play test it, we can see the full waypoints in action. I'm going straight to the desert. Without using the waypoint. Let's pick a fight. Attack! I did turn the sound for the background sound for the battle off because it's kind of like a bit overwhelming. Even on low setting. Kaboom! And that's because of the default. Didn't save the waypoint, but it's still set it as the default. So heading out again. I'm going to check this waypoint out. Yes. Okay. Let's go get our asses kicked again. There, teleported at the desert waypoint. And also you'll notice how the screen kind of like the map just appears briefly before it teleports. If we were to return to the house and use that waypoint, then that would be where you're resurrected. Now what if you wanted to create a map of all of the waypoints you found on your travels? Something you could look at for reference or to see where every location is. Right, create an event with 2 sheets. One for displaying the waypoints and the other one to cancel it. It could be anything from a book to a note on a table, or in my case a map on the wall, but it does the same thing. On sheet 1 for the show waypoints, the trigger is when main hero talks. Although I suppose you could. Yeah, I suppose you could use when making contact with a player. It'll do the same thing. So, the first thing in the event details is a variable box for the player direction. Now the reason I put this in place here is that without this, it'll repeatedly show the map. So it's kind of a safeguard. 0 is the variable value for when the character is facing up. There's nothing under no. So under yes, disable player control and the menu. If we didn't do this, the player would be able to wander off behind the map image because it's overlaid on the screen and we wouldn't see it, and that would be just weird when you cancel the map and the character is in the next room or something. Then we'll place the map image itself. I set it to 0, being the first image, onto which the images for the rest of the waypoints will be stacked, as you'll see in a sec. And you turn the local switch on. This is for the cancel map routine. Now remember the switches in the waypoint events? This is what they're used for. Each waypoint has its own individual switch. In fact, it might be easier to go into text form for this so you can see. Each one is placed directly underneath the other, and its graphic number must be one above the previous one. Otherwise, they'll be overwritten. So now for each, you can use the select to move them around on the screen. Have no doubts, this will take several tweaks and playtests to get the coordinates just right, so they look right with the position on the map. And then you repeat this for each waypoint marker you want to place. So for the cancel, the local switch is on in the add conditions. I'll change back to flowchart. And the trigger is auto start and run synchronize. Add a variable box check for the decide variable. It's set to 2 because that's the value of when the key is pressed. You can assign whatever button you like to this, they all work the same. I just chose this key because it's the action key and it seemed more apt. So under its yes, just delete all the images for the markers on the map. The order doesn't really matter, it's just easier if it's in reverse for adding more waypoints. You can just click on that one, add another one, instead of just scrolling down and then going to the bottom of them anyway. Next is change the event orientation to face down. The reason I put this here is that without it, a strange anomaly occurs where the map will appear and reappear on the screen until you move away. This doesn't actually change the character's direction, it just fools the routine into thinking that he's not facing the map. Re-enable player control and the menu and turn the local switch off. And actually, before playtesting again, let's go back to the desert so that we can tweak the waypoint event there. Just a little bit of a flourish. Right here we can add a check event switch. This would be waypoint 2, and we set it to off. Then add a display message, something like you found a new waypoint. It'll still register as before, but this little addition provides the player with a bit of extra information and a sense of progress and achievement, always important in games. So now for the final playtest. If we have a look at the map first, it'll be completely blank. No waypoints discovered. If you prefer, you can add another event somewhere on the map, or even append a sheet to the waypoint event itself where the trigger repeats once only and the switch for the waypoint 1 is turned on. That way, since this is the starting point, this waypoint is already recognized. But for the purposes of this tutorial, let's use that waypoint, store it, and then return to the map. And Professor Alk's house is logged onto the map. So into the desert, and we're going to use the waypoint there and return to this map. You found a new waypoint. Hopefully I shan't have any battles. So when we look at the map again, there you have the Desert Alpha waypoint. It's now logged. As I said, you can do this for as many waypoints as you have set up. This is probably not the best way of doing it, but it is a more efficient way of doing it. And with this particular map event, you can actually use a routine where you move a cursor around the map to choose which waypoint you want to teleport to. But that'll have to be for a future tutorial, only because it's very involved and convoluted. It might even have to be split into several parts. And besides, I'm still working out a few bugs in my event routines for this particular thing to be fully functional. I'm getting there. So eventually it'll be uploaded as a separate tutorial. And this wraps up another tutorial video. If you found it useful, give it a like and subscribe for more videos, or visit my Twitter and Facebook accounts or my official SGB website. And don't forget to join the official Smile Game Builder Discord channel for the latest SGB news and resources, or drop in simply for a chat. Everyone's welcome. All of the links will be in the description. I do have the next few tutorials planned and mapped out, but that schedule might change depending on a number of factors. Either way, there will be at least one tutorial next week, and February's monthly digest is scheduled for Sunday the 25th, because that falls at the end of this month. And finally, I have a week off at the very end of the month, so that week I'm aiming on having a live question and answer session with my other half and anyone else who wants to join in, asking questions, and of course me answering them. That's it for another video in the Smile Game Builder Tutorials and Showcases series. Thanks for watching. Until the next time.